Hey, this is Jordan Hill, and this is Dirt to Sky Business Podcast. I just want to thank Collier Law and SMI Real Estate for sponsoring this episode. And I'm so excited to be here today with the one and only Mr. Jacob Espinoza.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You?
I'm good.
Welcome. I needed a drum roll there.
That was good. I appreciate the welcome. I want to start every day with that energy in my life.
Just absolutely, like a confetti.
100%. Yeah, just walk out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
Confetti cannons were exploding. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here because you have started a business here in Salem unlike literally any other. And I'm sure many listening know who you are and what you do, but also this will be a great way to introduce you to other listeners.
I love it. Yeah. So I started What's Happening Salem about 7 months ago.
Yeah.
So now we have a podcast, Instagram, and a newsletter, which has just been a ton of fun. And we really try to take a different approach to local media and highlight the positive things that are happening in Salem, as we also just work to keep the community informed on everything that's happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before starting What's Happening Salem, what did you do? And what led you to starting What's Happening Salem?
Yeah, so previously I was a leadership consultant at T-Mobile. After leaving T-Mobile, I joined the Chamber of Commerce, where I got more involved in the business community, and I started writing a lot about leadership on Twitter. And so I built an audience there, and that led to an opportunity to work with this company, Workweek, that are based out of Austin, Texas. It's a new media company. Some people might be familiar with newsletters like The Hustle and Morning Brew. Well, a few of the people that helped start those newsletters left and then came together to start this new company called Workweek.
Yeah.
And they hired me to do a newsletter on leadership. And while I was there, I learned what a media company could look like in 2025 and beyond, and just how they approach things differently. And after I left Workweek, I started thinking through what could that model look like at a local level. And through that, What's Happening in Salem was born. And it's an idea I talked to other people about doing, and nobody started it. So finally, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna make it happen. And it's grown quicker than anything I've ever been a part of, which has just been so incredible for sure.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Now, it sounds like you had so many that thought it was a really great idea. Were there also people that it didn't make sense to that said, I don't know about that?
I think a lot of people had seen other people who had tried similar things and either fizzled out or it just didn't work for whatever reason. And so I think in the early days, there was kind of the bias that it's here now, but he's probably going to quit in a month or so. And I just kept posting and being resilient. And I think one of my gifts in life is just to highlight the strengths of the people around me. And I feel like that's just what I'm doing here is I'll step into a location and a restaurant or a sports card shop and just think through what makes this place cool and unique.
Yeah.
And then have an opportunity to kind of showcase that in a short video.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And, your videos catch so much attention. From the minute you started the Instagram page, I watched every single one. And I can't say that about very many pages because they don't, but you can't help but click on it. What's it going to say about this,
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
It's I think something I've learned with social media is you have to be okay understanding that you might be wrong. So when I first started making What's Happening in Salem, I was doing these videos. They were 30 seconds, 6 questions about Salem, and I thought they would be engaging. They weren't really. People fortunately would be part of it, but they didn't get a ton of traction. The first video that I did that went really well, it was talking about what a business or a building was going to be. I think it was the Dollar Distribution Center that's off Corden Road that's still being built, I think.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, hey, do you hear what this building is going to be? And then I kind of talked about how to get there. And then and that was the first one that just got tons of shares. So I was like, all right, let me keep doing this type of content. And I feel like anytime you own a social media channel, your goal should be to figure out what are the pillars of content that are going to work well for my audience, which requires lots of testing and lots of failing. But once you figure out those pillars, all right, let me just repeat this consistently.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's something that everybody listening can take away from because the small business failure rate is really high. And that's why we brought you on here and started this podcast, because it's about, that failure that you talked about, pushing through those times, not quitting too early. And so that's so cool that you kept trying. You weren't afraid of failing or maybe what some people would think, of looking dumb and being nervous, what other people would think, because look at what happened.
Totally.
How many followers on your Instagram after 7 months?
Yeah, we're at 31,000 right now, which is wild.
Wow.
So I've been making content about leadership for years, and TikTok I did well. It kind of took off a little bit. I'm like at 20,000 there, but just never really caught on Instagram.
Okay.
Like even as my follower account grew, my engagement has never been great. So to have something like this that's just had it almost feels like easy success. Even though I know a lot of work went into getting to the place where I have the skills and just the understanding of social media to be able to do it well, and the understanding of Salem as well. It's just been really quick success, which has felt great.
Yeah. And so your content it's fun. It's not dry. It's important, but you post a lot of just really fun and engaging. So what leads you to each post? Like, what kinds of things do you want to implement? What have you found works?
I wish I posted more. I think we do a good job. Like, I'm posting at least once a day. I think in the last 7 months, I have 500 posts. So it's a lot of content. Yeah. But there's so much happening in Salem, and I always feel bad that I can't post about everything. It's just there isn't the time. But I also want to make sure that I'm really thoughtful on what my audience will be interested in. Yeah. I have to kind of find that balance for sure. I
did too. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just thinking how you post stuff and things that are different. They're fun. Yeah. They're funny. You're just out there, and so just kind of your thought process and, maybe even how you started doing it, because not a lot of people do that. So many people are just real serious, Yep. I think
something we've done a good job with is being engaged with our audience. So when people are recommending places that we should visit, I take that pretty serious. Like, if you're passionate enough about this restaurant or the shop and that you are reaching out to somebody to write a story about it or post about it, there's probably something there. So we try to do a good job of just having an ear to the street. What are the things that these small pockets of Salem are passionate about, but the rest of the city just doesn't know about, because either they're not great at marketing or they just haven't had a chance for exposure. And how do we shine a light on some of that? And really our goal is we want to change the narrative of how Salem talks about itself. There's a lot of bad image perceptions that we have, and not to say we don't have problems, because we do, but just like every city has their problems, right? But if we're only focused on the problems, we probably aren't going to see the same type of improvement we could see if we also made it a point to focus on some of the positive things that are happening as well.
That's right. Yeah. And I love that, because when you're looking for the positive, you see it 100%. And you're a part of building that. And if you're focused on the negative, that's where you live,
Absolutely. So, I think it's so much fun. When I'll see somebody from out of town post on a comment on a post that we make about I didn't know this was here. Next time I'm in Salem, I need to try it. Giving them a reason to visit our community and spend money here and support our local economy is a great way we can attract more tourists, right? In addition to helping people in Salem understand what's happening, the way the algorithms work, it's not only people in Salem seeing the content. It gets people outside of it as well. True. So this is kind of a funny story, but one of my friends tried to share content of mine with he tried to share a Portland page with me. Hey, check out this video. You could probably do something similar. And they blocked me. I couldn't see their content because they blocked me. And my thinking is I kept showing up on their feed. So they're I'm just sick of hearing about Salem. I don't want to see this. Which you never want to block you. But at the same time, I was all right, people out of Salem are seeing this content consistently, and hopefully it's giving them a reason to visit Salem.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. They might have viewed you as a competing market.
Yeah.
But again, that's living in that negative scarcity mindset. Instead of the positive, let's highlight each other. Let's all win.
Exactly. I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are.
Your page is awesome.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So now, how do you find these businesses, these events? How do you find? Do people message you and ask you to feature it, or how do you find what?
Yeah, a lot of it is just me being in Salem my entire life, and just knowing people in different pockets of the city. I think I have a pretty good ear to the street of what's happening. But also now, like a lot of people will send me stories like, "Hey, we're opening this business. We'd love for you to stop by." So it's cool to now to be at a place where like I'm getting a lot of that information coming to me, and I don't have to be as active and like reaching out and asking what's happening. Um, but I also try to be aware of just other publications. I think Salem Reporter does a really good job, and I've been a paid subscriber of theirs since they started.
Yeah.
It's important for us to have these media outlets. I try to pay attention to what they're talking about as well, and just the different publications out there, just to stay informed. But it's also
Right.
nice just having people shoot me DMs or emails about things that are coming up.
Yeah, great. Now, you also have a killer newsletter. You have so many that you reach out to as well in their inbox consistently with your newsletter. I'd love to hear more about that, and how is it different than the Instagram page, and what does it offer that the Instagram page doesn't?
Yeah, awesome. So the newsletter is really focused on making sure people just understand what's happening in the community. So we'll do like a summary of a city council meeting. If a restaurant's open, we'll try to have a place for that to be there as well. And then we have a list of events that we feature. So I think we have like usually 20 events that we'll highlight coming up in the week. And then we also recently launched our event calendar. Is much better now than it was like 3 weeks ago. We have somebody pretty active and making sure it's updated with things that are happening in the community.
Awesome.
So if you're looking for something to do on a Wednesday night, like you can click on the calendar and just see, what's going on, whether it's a karaoke night, a trivia night, or like a band's coming to town. We really want this to be the place for arts, entertainment, sports, government, like everything happening in the community. We want it to be there, so you have a one-stop shop. And so that's really the focus of the newsletter. It's last week, here's a summary. And then for the next week, here's what's coming up that you can expect.
That's so great. How often does a newsletter come out?
Once a week right now. So we send it every
Wow.
Thursday at 5:03 p.m., trying to stick with the area code.
Okay, that's my next question. I was like, dang, okay.
So yeah, we're sending out once a week right now. I think eventually
Yeah.
we'll get to a place once our ad spots are filled that we'll probably move to twice a week.
Yep.
But currently, though, once a week, because we've had enough ads to sustain once a week.
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
It would be nice. I think the
that's
goal would be
amazing.
twice a week. I think the next thing I'd like to figure out too is like a local sports page. And I think there's a few people that do like personal blogs about sports, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But we don't really have now what I had when I was in high school, which is like a place you could go, which is the newspaper at that time, where you knew like what teams were winning, what kids were playing well, like what kid was signing with this, going to a specific college. Even now, it's tough to find out when games are because OSA's website is just a cluster. Like
Okay.
you can't even navigate. Even if you want to try to figure out when a game is played, like
Yeah.
going to the website, like you'll go. I don't know. I don't need to talk bad about them too long, but it's frustrating.
Right.
But the point is, like, people should have easy access to know when like these local events are happening, whether it's high school or college sports.
Yep.
If we're gonna, be able to support, our local athletes. So.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a note that anyone listening can take, is the fact that you've identified a need and an opportunity, and your mind is already like working towards that.
Yeah,
So I'm
I think
excited
solutions
for that.
are so much simpler sometimes than we try to make them.
Yeah.
If we can just like figure out, all right, there's this gap in the community. There's something I wish existed. What's a simple way I can provide a solution for this? And I think that's a great way to test if there's a market for your product. Earlier, you had mentioned like how hard it is for a business to operate. And it is. Like business is challenging. There's lots of elements that make it challenging. But I think sometimes people focus more on what they're passionate about and less on like what is there actually a market for. Like ideally, you'll find both. Something you're passionate about, something there's a market for,
Yeah.
something you're good at. And I think I'm blessed with what's happening in Salem to kind of have found a combination of those three. But if you're just doing something you're passionate about that there's not a market for, like it's a good hobby, but maybe it's not going to be a way to make a living.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. Now, what's happening in Salem has grown so quickly. Did you have to overcome something because you had the infrastructure just expanding so rapidly? Was there anything that you had to overcome, and like how did you overcome that?
I think my background in leadership development has helped out a ton in like the delegation side. It's still a lot of problem solving for sure. So I'm building a team around. We just launched a job board, and
Oh,
so
awesome.
I just brought on 3 people to help expand that, and hopefully encourage employers to use ours, which
Yeah.
is a local presence. as opposed to, or in addition to, like some of the other options that are out there. Because what's happening in Salem has gone well, I have a lot of people reaching out for help on social media. So we have a social media agency that's kind of starting on the side as well.
Love
So there's
it.
lots of like different projects, but really my focus is, okay, let me build a team around all of these things and make sure that we have things in place so that it's not me required to do all the work, because I don't have enough bandwidth to do all the work for the things
Yeah.
I want to accomplish. But I've done a good job in my life of building teams and creating structure that way, which will hopefully allow a lot of these things to do well, and for the people that are involved in them to be fulfilled and be able to use their strengths and
Yeah.
make a good living. So currently working with a lot of contractors, but it would be awesome to just have, a team that like what's happening in Salem, and we're just going to make cool stuff happen in this community.
Yeah. I mean, it's only been 7 months. So it's like just the fact that you have so many independent contractors already, like it's just going to be a matter of time.
For sure. I think so. Yeah, it's exciting.
Are all of those different, the different branches and departments that you're making, are they all housed under What's Happening Salem, or is each one kind of separate?
I'm working with a bookkeeper right now. It's going to help me get organized in that regard. But I currently have Kite String Consulting, which is my leadership development agency. I do business coaching and leadership development through that. And then I have What's Happening Salem, which has been the marketing and the media side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What advice do you have for somebody that is starting their own business? They're trying to get out there on social media, because that's a huge hurdle to overcome for so many.
Yeah.
So whether their business is new or not, and they're just starting to build their online presence, what are some pieces of advice you have for that business owner?
Stop being a coward is my first piece of advice.
Ouch.
Like stop being scared of what people are going to think. Stop worrying about like the judgment and the criticism. Stop worrying about whether your content's good. It's going to suck when you're just starting. That's part of anything. You have to like put the reps in if you're going to get good at anything that you're passionate about. So just get comfortable with that and just being in that space of like, I'm just going to keep getting better. Like I think some people see What's Happening in Salem and it's like, wow, like it was immediately successful. But like, let me show you some of the content I pushed out like 6-7 years ago. It's terrible. Like it's awful. And I was still hitting publish, and I was just like understanding it's part of the process. I'm sure people saw it and like cringed and like, what's this dude doing? Like, you know what I mean? But it's just part of the process of getting better. And I think you just have to be comfortable in that space of, there's this thing I want to get good at. I'm just going to like be focused on getting good at it and not necessarily being consumed with what people think of me, but also surrounding yourself with people who are also passionate about this thing that you want to do well at. Because you're going to learn quicker if you're learning from their successes and failures, having guidance, but then also like you'll get to a point where now you're able to help other people as well. And so I think those two things, like stop being scared of getting started, and then surround yourself with people who are passionate about the same types of things, because if you don't, you're going to feel like a weirdo and like something wrong with me that I care about this thing so much and I want to be good at this. But you can kind of normalize it if you can be in a room with people who share similar values. And
because your content is so fun and so engaging, a lot of times it's funny or just off the wall, which is great because people love that. I love that, you know? But how can a business owner kind of figure out when is something maybe unprofessional, or is that even something they need to worry about when they're coming out with just like kind of crazy, really fun content? Like, where's that balance? Like, how would you suggest a business owner?
I think you have to think about what you want your brand to be. But I feel like people don't care about professional any longer. Like if this was a podcast about business 10 years ago, we would probably both be dressed very differently.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at this point in our, like just the way business is now, people don't care about that. They want like real people. They want to like get to know who you are at a personal level. They want to know you as a person as opposed to this logo, right? So I feel like the first step is just get comfortable being on camera. But as a social media agency owner, I'm biased in this regard, but don't be afraid to pay somebody to help. Like don't feel like you need to figure this out on your own. You'll probably have a much quicker success rate if you're paying somebody to help you along the way and kind of teach you based off their experience, just like you would any other part of your business. You know, I think in general, businesses are going to be the most successful when you can focus on your strengths and then build people around you. And that's a gradual process. You probably can't hire everything when you're just getting started. Like you have to kind of do the legwork by yourself. But when you start building success, like not being afraid to cut down your margins if you're going to be able to hire people that are going to help your plane fly even higher.
Yeah. How would you suggest a business owner decide if they should just step up their social media game and their consistency, or if they should really hire an agency like yours or another person's?
Yeah. I think it depends on what they're passionate about. If it's something that they want to get better at, you can go on Instagram or YouTube and learn from the best. People are making content all the time, sharing with you what works right now. So like just being willing to consume content and then create it. But if it's not something you're really passionate about getting better at, then maybe it makes sense to hire somebody else out.
Right.
But also thinking through like what kind of growth can I anticipate by paying $5,000 for someone to do social media or marketing for me. If that's going to require I like double my business, and depending on how much I'm making from my business, then like maybe that's not going to be a wise investment.
Right.
But if you have the potential to turn that into an extra $10,000-$15,000 a month or whatever it might be, then like maybe it's worth it, So it just kind of depends on the type of business you're in, I think, as well. How much you're making off of a new customer and like the lifetime value of that customer, not just one purchase.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What is your next goal for what's happening Salem? What are you working towards that we can all just expect to see soon?
Yeah, I love it. So we're putting together a cohort. It's called Salem Community Connectors, which I'm really excited about. It's a series of virtual meetups, and then we'll have 3 in-person meetups as well. The goal here is to give people kind of a behind-the-scenes look of Salem and help them just understand who's making decisions, what are the nonprofits in Salem, and who are the nonprofit leaders, what are they focused on, what are they seeing. Hopefully they'll leave with a more well-rounded perspective of the Salem community, but also just leave with new friends.
Yeah.
So we'll have virtual meetups and then in-person meetups as well. We actually had like a pre-meetup last night actually at Casa Amigos, and it was incredible. It's just like a really good group of people, so I'm stoked for it. And I think we had a couple of people sign up today since we posted a reel, which is awesome. So I'm excited for that. But honestly, I'm just like trying to wake up and like be present and be willing to accept opportunities that present themselves. So my goal is this time next year, I look back and like, man, I didn't see this coming. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
Like I knew like we had some cool momentum building, but like I didn't really see us taking us here. So that's really my focus, is just like making the most of opportunities, making sure we're taking care of our sponsors and our partners, and listening to them and what's important to them, and finding ways to find creative solutions for them to reach their marketing goals when they're working with us. And I think I have to take a lot of pride in that we don't necessarily have like a rigid structure. Like we have like a price sheet and things like that, but we're very open to listen to people and just understand what's important to them and figure out like how do we make this a win-win for everybody.
That's right. That's so great. That's exciting.
Thank you.
So if somebody's interested in sponsoring what you're doing, what's the next step for that?
Send me an email, a DM, jacob@what'shappeningsalem.com is my email address, or shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm there very often, so I usually see them coming in. You do a great job with this podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, super impressed. Very natural conversation, great energy. This is only the second episode. I think you've done similar types of things in the past, maybe.
Yes, I have a lifestyle podcast as well.
Yeah, so you've done this for a while. But I love seeing people in Salem like starting media and like putting themselves out there, but also like spotlighting the community. I've seen kind of a wave of new creators doing this, and I think it's awesome for the community. I think if we can kind of rally together, work together, it can lead to some really cool things for Salem. So it's awesome to see. I love that you're starting this podcast, and I'm looking around like the setup, and Aaron's back here, like like thinking of all the editing he has to do to put this podcast together. Like
Takes a village.
Hosting the podcast is the funnest
By
part.
village, I mean Aaron.
Hosting the podcast is the fun part, but like the editing, it can be
So
pretty
much behind the
tedious
scenes.
because you got like multiple cameras, you got to put them all together. So it's a project for sure. So appreciate you putting the work in, Aaron, making us all look good over here.
Absolutely. And I can only imagine behind the scenes for everything that you're doing, but
I don't do any of the editing, so I have somebody else help out with that. Luckily. Yeah,
we're going to have Aaron
man,
jump in
for sure.
hop on in.
Exactly.
Well, for anyone that is wanting to follow what's happening Salem and subscribe to your newsletter, tell us a little bit more on how to do that.
Yeah, what's happening in Salem.com. We the event calendar, the job board. You can subscribe to the newsletter there as well. And then Instagram, what's happening in Salem also. And we've got the podcast that goes out every Friday morning where we talk to just people in the community about what's going on. We've had the police chief, lots of elected officials. So it's been awesome having that resource for sure.
That is so awesome. Yeah, so you're definitely a one-stop shop. So I'm excited for everybody to see what you're doing and support you. And thank you for all you do for the community. You know, you have a podcast, this podcast, there's multiples, and we can all just help each other grow and support each other.
100%.
Because everybody has their own unique focus and twist, and it's just, we can all grow together, you know, rising tide lifts all ships.
Totally. I need to get better about going to other events. I feel like I do so many of my own that I'm like, another event's always like, man, do I have the energy and like the capacity to be around people more when I'm just around people all the time?
Right.
So sometimes it's nice having that break, which is,
I
think we all got to give ourselves boundaries, but at the same time, just being better about getting out and being parts of the things that are happening, because there are lots of great things happening in Salem.
Well, I know where to find a list of events in case you're wondering.
I do as well, yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, before we close, I would love to hear just your best piece of advice for somebody that is starting a business, especially one that's present on social media or breaking into just a new market. What's just a general piece of advice you have?
Don't be afraid to fail. Make strategic failures. So don't be afraid to fail. Try things. Understanding is part of the process. If you're somebody that's kind of like had this idea that you've been kicking around in your head forever, but you're just like waiting for the right time, like the right situation for it to happen, like that right time's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Just get started. Think of what's the smallest step I can take towards making this happen? What's the simplest version of this thing I want to do? And just get going with it. And I think the other piece is figure out something that's going to help people.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to start a t-shirt company, which is cool. I get it.
Yep.
But being a brand and selling clothes is an extremely difficult way to make a living. Think of the things that you aren't seeing in the community. What's something that you wish existed that would help people out, and then just figure out a way to make it happen. And I think if you can serve a community that is not feeling served, you will probably find some early adopters. And if you can make them feel like choosing you was the best decision they made, they'll tell their friends, and before you know it, you have a successful business.
That's amazing. That's
there we go.
Great advice.
There we go.
Boom.
Mic drop, I guess.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This was all gold. I'm so excited for others to hear this because it's so needed, and I'm excited I need to subscribe to your newsletter now.
What are you doing?
So that's my homework.
I should have checked first.
I know. Trust me, as soon as we log off here, I'm going to. But
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I feel better about myself after this podcast. That's
I'm
because
so
of you and the
glad.
questions and just building me up and creating excitement in what I'm
impressed.
doing. So thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks for being open and all this advice. And hopefully I'll talk to you on here again sometime.
Let's go.
All right.
Appreciate you. Have fun editing, Aaron.
Thank you so much for joining Dirt to Sky Business Podcast. And thank you, Collier Law and SMI Real Estate.